Welcome back to our channel. I'm that auntie mum Danielle, and here we create and share art-inspired ideas and activities to do with toddlers and preschoolers. Have you ever been out and seen a piece of decor that you fell in love with, but it wasn't quite in your budget? Well, that's what happened when I saw these gorgeous hot air balloons hanging in a local store that would have been perfect for my son's bedroom. So instead of breaking the bank, I decided to try and make them myself. So let's get started. For today's activity, we will need water, PVA glue, balloons, a paintbrush, newspaper, paint, and later for the basket we'll be using an egg carton, twine, a needle, and an optional choice to use metal eyelets. To make our paper mache paste, we'll be mixing 1 part glue to 2 parts water. This part isn't too fiddly and is a fun way to include the kids. Here I have cut the newspaper into strips to make it easier to apply to the balloon. First we started to apply our glue mixture to the balloon in small sections and then layered our strips of newspaper on top. To get a good coverage, we applied about 3 layers over the surface of the balloon in the end. Once the paper mache had dried, I applied a good coat of gesso on top to help seal the outside and provide a good surface to paint on later. I left the gesso to dry overnight to get a good hard shell ready to paint. Next up, I took a pencil and started to sketch out the guidelines to paint the pattern on our balloon. I decided to go with the classic 2-tone stripe design, so divided the balloon into 8 equal-ish sections. Once that was done, I grabbed my first paint colour and applied it roughly to every second section. You will see I did a pretty rough job of applying the first colour, but by applying the lighter of your 2 colours first, you can easily paint over top with a darker colour and block out any overlap. If you were to apply your darker colour first, then any mistakes would still be seen underneath the lighter paint and would take more coats to correct, which is more time consuming. Once the first paint job had dried, I then added the second colour and took a bit more care outlining these sections. If you wanted really crisp lines, you could use masking tape to achieve this, but for this project, as the paper mache is already quite ripply, I didn't mind if my lines weren't perfect. Next up, it was time to make the little basket for our balloon. I will be honest here and say I was making a lot of this up as I went along, so it's a bit rough, but by watching this through you'll see what works and learn from my mistakes. First, I cut out a couple of the egg holders from the egg carton to use as the base of the baskets. I cut out 2 here as I was making 1 balloon each for my 2 boys. Next, I used some craft matchsticks and the hot glue gun to brace my basket, adding a matchstick to each corner. I then added a matchstick in between each of those corners, so ended up using a total of 8 matchsticks to brace the basket. Once they had dried, I thread my twine through my needle and added a knot to the end. It is definitely worth noting that I cannot crochet and I'm a novice at sewing, so if you have experience in this area, I'm sure this stage will be a lot easier for you. Once I thread the first stitch through the egg carton, I quickly realised that the egg carton was really tough, and my idea of simply weaving the thread all the way around the basket wasn't quite going to work. So instead I thread the twine through the basket near the point where each matchstick was attached to create little anchor points at the bottom. And then I thread my hook through each of those points and then hook the thread around the top of each matchstick to make this kind of upside down V pattern. Next I wove through each of the anchor points at the bottom to cover the base. Not the prettiest, but it'll do. Now this is a little tricky to explain, but rather than weaving in and out of the egg carton itself, I thread my twine in and out of the upside down V's that I made until I had covered the basket. Once I had wrapped the twine all the way around to the top, I then secured the twine to the basket by threading my needle back through the base of each matchstick and then pulled it up and around each side. This helped to keep it all secure, and I also liked the look that it gave. To finish off the basket, I stitched an edge all the way around the rim. And lastly, I used my scissors to trim the overhang of the matchsticks, and that's the basket done. Now it is time to assemble the hot air balloon. Here I decided to use 4 threads of twine to attach the balloon to the basket. As I was about to make the first hole in the balloon, I was a little worried about the strength of it over time, so this is where I thought to use my little eyelet kit to reinforce the area around where the hole would be. Once I threaded the twine through the balloon, I secured it to the basket below, taking note of the length of the twine so I could make each side even. Now that the basket is attached to the balloon, all I had left to do was thread a bit of twine through the top of the balloon so I could attach it to the ceiling. And there you have it, DIY hanging hot air balloons, perfect to hang in your little one's bedroom. If you enjoyed this tutorial and would like to see more, we'd love for you to like and hit that subscribe button below. Thank you for watching and we'll see you in our next video. Bye for now.